Now let's jump into the criteria. We're going to discuss a dealership hours of operation, which is part of the criteria 1.1. So the criteria states, do your hours of operation support my needs? Are there clear alternatives when you aren't open? Here we have an example of a website image of a dealer with all the hours of operation. Now, the hours of operation need to be congruent, whether it be a website, whether it be a sign on the fence, or whether it be sort of printed on the door. They all need to reflect the same information on hours and phone numbers, etc. So it's all got to reflect. There can't be any variances in your advertised hours and contact details. Dealership signage. Will your signage clearly direct me to parking areas, service and parts departments, and waiting areas, and also trailer parking areas if needed? Are your hours clearly posted where I can see them? Here we have examples of some signage with directions, and sometimes we also have some traffic flow maps as well, but it's got to be visible from a truck cab. Sometimes in the past we've had people sort of do signage and that sort of thing and forget that the person that's looking at it, or the important person, is in a truck quite high, and sometimes the signs have been placed too low. So you need to keep that in mind. It needs to be visible from a truck cab. Some more examples of appropriate signs. And remember, imagine you were the customer. So it's got to be simple. What we want to be able to achieve is for a customer to navigate around your dealership without having to ask for directions. So that's what we're trying to achieve. It's a little bit like having a process or a procedure. It needs to be able to be carried out with no input or supervision. Here we have some signage which is good versus bad. Now, you've got to remember here that sometimes, if you look at these signs, the one on the right has got too much information. So what we want is, for example, the one on the left is a little bit clearer. So we don't want them to be too busy. Here we have an aerial view of the dealership with identified parts where parts service and sales are, parking, where to park, where to go, where not to go. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but there again, it's well worth doing. That's obviously been done with a drone, and it's a good thing to do. So you've got manageable traffic flow, and you don't want people getting stuck in dead-end places where they can't back out with a trailer. People are obviously a lot more confident and comfortable if they know where they're going. Imagine you've got a huge trailer on the back. You don't want to get stuck in a dead end, as I was saying before, and have to back out. So you need to be confident about where you're going. Here's a great example of a sign with a photo of the particular vehicle that's parked there. That's best practice, very good thing to do. Will I have a comfortable, clean, waiting environment with basic amenities available to me throughout the repair process? Here is a picture of a waiting room in one of our dealerships. As you can see, it's quite comfortable. There's good chairs. There is signage for toilets, customer lounge, kitchens and so forth. We need to have television with a remote that actually works. We need to have coffee machines, vending machines, all these things, okay, to enhance the customer experience. So if in doubt, when you're going through this criteria and sort of making a judgment call on whether your amenities are up to the scratch, I urge you to ask yourself, is this elite? If you're looking at whether it's a TV, whether it's furniture, things of that ilk. If it's not, we will very quickly advise you as to what's required. Again, another picture of a waiting area, very neat and tidy with a coffee machine and that sort of thing. Just on the coffee issue, I mean, in the past we've had sort of places that have had instant coffee and that sort of thing, which has passed elite support criteria. I think the current customer expectation is now a fresh coffee, which is a coffee machine or an espresso type arrangement, which is simple to use. So just bear in mind that the expectation does change and it is going higher. Another example of coffee machines, magazines, snacks and things that are available free of charge to the customer with Wi-Fi passwords readily available, along with telephones and desks and things to make it more comfortable for a customer that wants to do some work while they wait. Here's another example. Here we have vending machines, and we also have a laundry, okay, where interstate truck drivers can wash clothes and so forth. Some even have sleeping areas. Some of our dealerships have those for customer sort of waiting rooms so they can have breaks and that sort of thing while the truck's being serviced. So anything you have in the way of amenities need to be listed on websites and things so it is congruent so the customer knows what to expect. We've got some examples here of a compendium which tells the customer what services are available, whether they need to be dropped off at hotels, restaurants, shopping, notice board with some phone numbers and things, and a phone available in a work area as well. If you have a designated smoking area, that needs to be obviously, the customer needs to know where that is. It has to be clean and tidy and up to standard. I know this is becoming a bit of a thing of the past because a lot of sites are going to a no smoking policy on their premises. So, but if you do have a smoking area, it needs to be clean, tidy, and also look elite, not with furniture that's been grabbed from a council chuck out or something along those lines. It's got to be something neat and tidy and appropriate. Criteria 1.5, do you have a website where I can easily find basic information so I don't have to call? Here's an example of one of our dealerships with appropriate phone numbers, email addresses, names of department heads and things of that ilk. Another example of a good website. Marketing best practices. Well, we prominently want to feature the Elite Support logo on your landing page once you are certified, with links to Mercedes-Benz, Freightliner, Fuso and other Daimler Truck and Bus branded websites. Be sure to spotlight your dealership's comprehensive customer amenities. On service pages, explain the express assessment commitment, which we'll talk a little bit further about later, and also the services that you offer. Your customers are going to expect a higher standard and service from an Elite Support dealer over and above a non-certified dealer. Here we have an example of Google, okay? So we need to obviously be sort of thinking about search engine optimization and things with Google AdWords and that. So you're obviously going to come up in your area first and foremost if someone does a Google search. Criteria 1.6. Will you greet and acknowledge me in a courteous and professional manner? Will you show me the ropes if it's my first time into your dealership? Will your employees appear professional and be easy to identify? Here we have a process for a customer meet and greet and write-up process. I mean, obviously that's going to change from dealership to dealership, but we need to have something consistent and professional. Also, with our appearance, when everyone needs to be in a uniform with a name badge on, okay? It just looks for a professional organisation. Also, we need to be neat and tidy and well groomed so that we give the right message so we're not appearing sloppy, because remember what I said in day one, if the dealership looks sloppy and we look sloppy, their interpretation is sloppy, and that is certainly not Elite. Consider a standard greeting, so it's a written process so everyone understands what is required. For example, we have you can do a 1.5 and a 3 metre rule, for example, which breaks down meaning within 3 metres of a customer, acknowledge with a smile. Within 1.5 metres of a customer, acknowledge them verbally. A thank you is huge. Always be sure to thank them for their business. Now, so much so that we've actually also been talking and advising dealerships that potentially a way to cover the thank you for the business issue would be to have a sign on exit big enough for the customer to see from their truck cab, thanking them for their business. Whilst we're going through the criteria, you need to ascertain, is your dealership meeting and sustaining the particular criteria point that we're looking at. If you're missing the mark or there's room for improvement, what are the opportunities for improvement? What is the action plan to fix it, and which CI tools will you use? Criteria 1.7. Will you ask me for my opinion and make changes based upon my feedback? Okay, so what we're actually attempting to do here is to ensure to the customer that we have a process to deal with their feedback and to make changes accordingly. Here are some examples of, for example, a digital kiosk where the customer puts in with happy smiling faces and they answer certain questions on their dealership experience. We also have various surveys that are carried out, by Daimler or possibly other people to ascertain as to what the feedback is. So there's many different methods that you can use, but you have to have some sort of process for capturing, the customer feedback. Here we have another example of someone filling out a customer feedback form. So they can come in many different ways, it can even come through social media these days. But look, we need to ascertain that we need to react to this rather quickly, because there's two different ways to look at it. If there is a problem and the customer is disappointed, we can deal with that and make good on that. But if it gets to a situation where the customer is dissatisfied and there's been no remedial action, or they felt that they weren't listened to and it wasn't resolved to their satisfaction, they're very unlikely to do business with you again. So therefore we're trying to instill in you the importance of having an appropriate feedback system and also an action plan to ensure that you can rectify the situation. Here we have an example of online media with people's, satisfaction. Honest, you've all seen it on Google star ratings and that sort of thing. The only danger with this sort of thing, once it's up, and you pretty much can't remove it. So I would urge you to possibly have a system before it gets to this point where you can sort of make changes if required. Here we have an action plan, which is a customer survey negative feedback resolution log. Now, this is an avenue to monitor and track, what is happening, whether you're getting dissatisfied customers. We've got to get out of the previous practice of trying to cover up these things. We need feedback. We need to know what is happening, because that makes us a stronger organisation going forward. Criteria 1.8. Do you have a process to ensure that the entire dealership will be clean during my visit? Now, clean means different things to different people. So we need to, and perception is reality. If the dealership looks clean and tidy, the perception of the customer is that not only is the dealership clean and tidy, that the work also will be clean and tidy and professional. Here we have a photo, a very unfortunate photo, of a customer, bathroom, toilets, which is very badly kept. If you get to this situation, I suggest that we're going to hell in a handbasket. We certainly need to have a level of cleanliness that you would expect if you were the customer, or that you would expect if you were going to a place of business or someone's home or even a restaurant, something along the lines of that ilk. It has to be clean and tidy. And if we've learnt nothing else during this COVID pandemic, it is that cleanliness is next to godliness. Here is an example of a pretty untidy situation we've got in a workshop. You can see there's a lot of equipment sort of chucked everywhere, certainly not efficient, certainly not going to make anyone productive. It's just a mess. It looks terrible. It certainly sends the wrong message. Here's an example of what we would expect the toilets and bathrooms to look in an Elite Support certified dealership. Here's a workshop area where equipment is stored in line marking and so forth and special tools. Okay, that is what we would expect in an elite support certified dealer. So if your dealership looks like the previous slide, you've certainly got a problem. So no brainer, obviously an OFI is required, and this is what we need to achieve. Here's another example of a clean and tidy workshop with line marking and pathways for safety to make sure that everyone walking is in the right direction and is in a safe area to do so. This is what we would expect in cleanliness and organisation layout. Here we have a photo of the technician's bathroom area with wash stations. This is another example of what we would expect in an elite support certified location. Here's an example of a 5-minute shine of equipment that is stored, okay, and line marked and has a photograph of the equipment so everything's neat and tidy and in its place. Again, is what we would expect in a certified dealership. Here we have an action plan with a 5-minute shine map on a dealership's customer amenities, as well as the technician's lunchroom. So everything is laid out on what needs to be required, everything is ticked off and signed off, and there's accountability for the outcome, which is what we would expect. Okay, what is the value? Here we have a slide of a before and after of the grounds of a dealership. As you can see, the before shot is quite woeful with old pallets, broken pallets, bits of junk, Atco huts, and the after is cleaned up. That's what we need to achieve with our grounds in our dealerships to remove all clutter and rubbish and junk around the place. So the value is sometimes, you know, it's very often the message. Now, looking at those two photos, where would you take your truck to, the before or the after? I think we all know the answer to that. So that's the value. All right, here we go. Another one, we've got a 5S example of a desk, which is quite messy. You've got before and after photos. Now, yes, it's an extreme. Someone has taken a lot of time and cut out foam cutouts of where they put their stapler and pens and things. All right, it's overkill, but which desk would you rather be working at? I think the answer is quite obvious that it's the after photo with the everything in its place. Here we have a workshop control office with a before and after shot. Obviously you can see, guys, which would be the easy one, and the more efficient workspace would be the after. Here we have simply a cupboard with PPE and various different things in it, which has been 5S'd and cleaned up. I mean, it's far easier in the after shop to identify where things are and to get them quite quickly and efficiently. Here we have a before and after shot of the special tool room. Now, we've spoken about this many a times. Obviously, if you have the after shot and you've got a menu system, it's far easier to find the required special tool than searching through and rummaging through shelves and boxes and things like that. So this is where we pick up our productivity and efficiency gains. Here's an example of a customer waiting area that's quite compact. Obviously, I've said before that you don't have to have a Taj Mahal dealership to comply, but what we've got here, we've got sort of fridges with water that's clean and tidy. The customers don't have to go to someone's fridge where there's lunches in for the staff and all this sort of thing. Also has a glass door to make it easier. This is all best practice stuff. 67, again, here we have a fridge that was obviously used in a customer's waiting area, but also doubled as a fridge for the sales and admin staff, and all that was required that it was clean and tidy and kept up to a certain standard. And obviously, which fridge would you rather get something out of? Obviously the clean and tidy unit. Here we have a shot of good line marking as opposed to before. As you can see, it's quite a difference. So obviously the productivity and efficiency gains in selecting equipment once it has the line marking done is quite obvious. Here we go again, we have a parts dispatch area before and after that's been cleaned up. Obviously the productivity and efficiency gains are self-evident. Here we have a spare parts retail showroom. The before shot, it was things weren't grouped, it wasn't attractive, and once it was rezoned and redone, obviously it looks 100% better. It looks more attractive for people to obviously go and invite them to select something. Here we have a great example of adding value where we've got a key locker. Okay, as you can see, you've got a before with keys sort of everywhere. Afterwards, they're all numbered, they're all color coded, much easier to find the keys. This all enhances efficiency and productivity and less downtime. Here we have an example of brochures and sales brochures and things that have been reorganised. As you can see, obviously the one before was quite unattractive and uninviting, dog-eared material. The after is all tidied up, looks much more inviting and neat and tidy. We're going to talk a little bit more about culture. If 5S, for example, is the backbone of continuous improvement and the foundation, I suppose, to elite support, how many of you will need to make changes to accommodate 5S practices and organisation of your workspaces? How do you anticipate making these changes and, more importantly, sustaining them once made? What we are talking about here is a change in culture. Here we go again, guys, the culture word is coming up again. 5S areas of opportunity can be, in the service department in particular, the special tool room, that's a no-brainer. Truck key process, incoming and outgoing, or in process. Rolling, I guess, crash carts by engine type or job type. This is for special tools required for certain jobs, already put together in a cart to do that job that you're particularly doing. Now, technicians' toolboxes, another area, okay, where we've got toolboxes that need to be, I guess, put in a place where we're not doing excessive leg time. They also need to be rolling. Okay, they need to be neat and tidy in 5S so they can put their hands on the appropriate tool quite quickly. The other thing we need to consider is horizontal surfaces. Horizontal surfaces are a big no-no because they are a beacon to attract junk and things placed on them. Horizontal surfaces, yes, can be necessary when doing jobs, but put them on wheels and maneuver them in and out, or have them stacked so they're tidy. Remove all horizontal surfaces you can, because all they do is attract junk and rubbish. And also remove any broken tools, even if they're quite large. If they're broken and they're not working, there's no point them being there. They're not going to be useful for anything. And it can be, engine harnesses, welding, anything to do with those things. They've got to be operational. Potential areas of opportunity for parts, for example, would be warehouse tools, which are dollies, carts, shipping supplies, tape area, scales, all that sort of thing. Warranty parts areas can always do with a tidy up, and they need to be monitored and make sure they're shipped back in the appropriate time or destroyed as required. Parts delivery vehicles need to be probably 5S, or obviously looked to be the most functional they can be, and retail parts as well. Core areas need to be monitored, and they need to be one of the biggest issues for financial controllers coming into profit and loss reporting is the cores that are not returned or have been where the dealership has to wear many thousands of dollars purely and simply because cores weren't returned on time because they couldn't be found. So we need to have proper storage and identification and record keeping of things like core returns. Potential areas of opportunity for truck sales. Now, parking space identification for new and used vehicles. Very often we have trucks that are usually, a lot of them are white, and we don't have any numbering or any line marking or any sort of zone mapping. This needs to be done to ensure efficient handling of retrieval and parking of stock trucks, whether they be new or used. Obviously, the sales lobby needs to be inviting, and literature has to be current, and also literature storage. Remove any of the old brochures that are no longer relevant. Do you have a dedicated continuous improvement person who will help identify ways your business can better serve customers like myself? Okay, yes, each dealership has to have a dedicated continuous improvement coordinator. Here we have a shot of all the CICs that were in Elite Support in process certified and uncertified dealers last December at Cape Byron, where we have a summit every year to discuss any improvements going forward and to celebrate the year's activities. So yes, we do have a continuous improvement coordinator, which is the backbone and facilitator of our continuous improvement activities in all our dealerships. Here is some more pictures of some of the activities and dinners and things that was at the summit last year in Byron Bay. Okay, 1.10. Do you have a team on site who can help manage change at your dealership to better serve customers like me? This is in direct reference, guys, to the change management team. The answer is yes, we do. When we don't manage change effectively, and we spoke about this before, expect lower productivity, active or passive resistance. People arguing about the need for change. Change is not fully implemented. People finding workarounds. People revert to the old way of doing things. Creating silos, the us and them mentality, or the change being totally scrapped. Hence why we need a CMT. Now, a CMT, as we spoke about before, consists of all our departmental managers, plus guests invited on, financial controllers, IT people, to carry out the continuous improvement activities of the dealership. So this is critical in our efforts of continuous improvement. 1.11, are your employees fully trained to support my needs? Here we have a copy of a training matrix where this is for recording and viewing technician skills and what appropriate courses they have done or have to do. And it also helps you to identify gaps in the training skills. Another example of a training matrix. Another example of a training matrix. Now, why is training important? Okay. And why is it important to have a training matrix? Because we need to have, like anything, a systematic approach, which is a procedure, which is logical and fair. And it allows for continuous up-to-date monitoring, enables rapid management adjustments if it's very easy to see if someone is or isn't trained, promotes product knowledge, increases product awareness. So it is very important. And the higher skill level we have, the more throughput we can put through our workshop, the less, if people are highly trained, they're less likely to leave. We stopped all that waste of human resources and money in recruiting and training people. It's just a win-win for everybody. All right, when and where is a training matrix used? It's used on a regular basis. We need to have it, so we certify for regular training matrices, supervisors, for also annual leave. We can sort of cover when we've got appropriate people that we need from a technical point of view. All right, let's talk about ISS. Most of the courses required to meet the criteria in 1.11 can be found on the International Sales and Service website. This is where all the appropriate courses that are needed to be done by service advisors, parts interpreters, spare parts managers, service managers are there, so you can do the courses and record them. Here we have a list of the courses with codes that are required for different duties to be carried out in your dealership. All right, we have here ES 101, which is the Introduction to Elite Support. Now, this is to be done by the CIC in the dealership, and it is an introduction to elite support that it needs to be carried out to all your people within the dealership. And it's just so everyone understands what it's all about, that it's just not about just painting pretty lines on the ground and ticking boxes of criteria. It is actually about continuous improvement. So we need to get that message across, and we need your help in doing that. Okay, which brings us to the next point of criteria, 1.12. Do you have an ongoing effort to improve the quality of my customer experience? We have a continuous improvement event summary. Now, what is meant by that is that every quarter we put up a CI event, which is usually a pretty big OFI that has been a major contributor to either increasing productivity and efficiency, increasing monetary value, or it could be a non-tangible one where it's just a bit of a feel-good thing. But what we do is we wish you to put up one every quarter on a major CI event, and we actually have a prize at the end of the year for the best and greatest CI event. So the bottom line is, so we're continuously improving. Now, let's talk about value add. And you'll hear this mentioned a lot. So, what does value add mean? Okay, value add obviously improves the customer experience, increases revenue and profit, and it's the goal of continuous improvement and the aim of all continuous improvement events. Now, what is value add? I'll explain. As we mentioned in the day one, and I gave you an example of a dealership that has looked at what's the greatest area of waste for their technicians, and it proved to be the spare parts back counter, the toilets, aka texting booth, the special tool room, and smoking and things of that ilk. And we did a rough calculation, and we came up with 20 technicians was $2 million roughly in labour that could be saved, and additional 85% of that in parts sales. It could be also in addition to that, which is around about nearly $4 million. That's called value add, guys, in a fiscal monetary terms. It also has the reason it's happened is because efficiency and productivity is obviously increased tenfold in order to do that. But value add is anything that we can add by doing continuous improvement that we monitor and track as to, okay, for example, okay, at the end of year 5, once you've been certified in elite support, we've managed to claw back X amount of dollars by operating more efficiently and using continuous improvement as our the way we do things. So anything that we do to claw back, whether it be money or time or anything, is a value add, bottom line. And we do monitor that. Our value add is created by removing waste. Here you can see a bit of a synopsis of business as usual, and you can see all the red areas of waste. And the customer experience begins and it ends, and say that might be an 8-hour period. After the dealership is elite support certified, after a time you can see that we've removed all the waste and the customer downtime is drastically reduced. So we've removed the waste, we've added value to the customer by increasing their uptime so they can make more money with their truck. It's in the dealership less amount of time. We've also added value because we got more efficient. We've also been able to service more trucks, creating more revenue to the dealership. This is value add. How do we add value? All right, first and foremost, we need to start with a meaningful opportunity for improvement. We then need to reduce and eliminate waste. We need to improve the procedure or the process. We need to strengthen the communication of everyone who's involved in that procedure, which in turn will elevate the customer experience, which in turn will enhance your CI culture, which in turn will increase the, the revenue and efficiency and productivity of your dealership. And we do that by, as you see in the right-hand column, we've got the bin there of waste going up in smoke, and we've got all the things that attribute to waste: the weighting, the motion, the overproduction, transportation, inventory, defects and extra processing. Figuring value add. Okay, what do we do with it? How do we add it up? What does it mean? What do we use it for? There's two types of value add. There's direct value add and indirect. Okay, so sometimes the value add is not measurable, and most of the time it is. We urge you to start small and project savings over time. Now I'm going to give you a really good, example of how a small thing of value add can add up to a lot. For example, most of you have pits in your dealership service department where you change the oil on the vehicles. Now, for example, you might say you're doing 10 lube services a day. What we've found in a lot of cases, a lot of the pits do not have the appropriate tools down in the pits for removing drain plugs, whatever coverings are needed to be removed to get to the engine sump plugs, oil filters and things of that ilk to drain the oil. So what's happening is the technician is going up and down the ladders or staircase, if it's a really swanky pit, and that all takes time. So between that, running backwards and forwards and getting all the tools required and getting the wrong ones or whatever, and stripping a sump plug when there should be sump plugs possibly down there in the pit ready to go, and that sort of thing, and O-rings and all this sort of stuff. Then we have this situation where there's usually a spillage. So we've then found out that there's not a lot of cleaning up tools already down in the pits. I'm talking about like mops and buckets with degreasers all ready to go. So what we worked out that on average, if all that equipment and tooling is down there in the pits, it usually saves about 10 minutes per oil change. If we're doing, say we're doing 12 lube services a day, that's 120 minutes a day that we've saved. So if we've got 120 minutes a day at $140 an hour, that's 2 hours. That's $280 a day that we've recouped. If we do $280 a day by a 21-day month, we'll calculate a few Saturdays in there, we've got 23 days. So we've got $280 by 23 days, okay? So that's a month multiplied by 12. Guys, you do the maths. That adds up to somewhere around, ballpark figure, somewhere around $80,000 to $100,000. Then you put the additional spare parts equivalent in there. You're talking between $100,000 and $200,000 that you've recouped. Now that's by simply having the tools, okay, and the cleaning up materials down in the pit, going a little bit outside the square and thinking and having this stuff to make it as efficient and productive as possible. It's the little things add up to a lot. So that in turn is a lot of money. So I think that's a good analogy to use, and we can talk a little bit further about that down the track. Here we have another value add example, just up on the screen now for you to have a look at. And here's an example of technicians' time being wasted getting special tools. So the corrective action would be to reorganise the shop's tool room and place commonly used tools in the centre of the workshop and also forefront up so they're easy to get. We need to have measurable results. So the scenario is as follows. Saves the one tech 5 minutes per repair. We've got 5 repairs per day, so we've got 20 minutes per day savings. 20 minutes by 6 techs is 120 minutes a day, which is 2 hours. This particular scenario is at $100 an hour, so we've got $200 per day, $200 for 5 days, will in our case be 6 days, so it'll be more than that. Okay, but in this scenario, $1,000 per week, 1,000 by 50 weeks is 50,000 per year. Then we've got the parts equation to go in there as well. So there you can see, little things mean a lot, guys. So keep that forefront in your mind. This is all what a continuous improvement is all about. Criteria, assessment and action planning. Okay, these are questions that I need you to ask yourself as we're going along. Is your dealership meeting and sustaining this criteria point? If not, what are the OFIs, opportunities for improvement? What is the action plan? Which CI tools will you use?